Hey guys, it's Jacob from TCG Buzz, and I am back from Chicago Regionals, and I'm going to show you the deck I played, which was the talk of the town. Everyone was talking about it. This is a combo deck that we developed, and it's really broken. So I hope you guys enjoy, and if you lose to this deck at your next Regionals, I'm sorry, but this is what happens when Bushiroad bans Obstruct. Let's get into it.
All right, and here we have the deck you've all been hearing about. I am so excited to show this to you. I've had to keep it secret for months. Will and I came up with the combo, and then Dalton helped refine the deck. There is another build to the deck that doesn't use one of the engines in it. We'll get into that at another time. Particularly, we're going to be doing our entire review of the tournament, so we'll go into more detail there. So make sure to check that out when that's out. For now, I'm just going to show you what I played with. Every card in here is exactly how I played it at the tournament. So here's our buddy, Actor Knight's the Fool. He's actually the most important card of the deck. Very, very important combo piece, and I am joking. He's only the buddy in the deck. He's not even in the deck whatsoever. I'm just memeing. And then we have our flag, Dragonine. This is important. It's the flag that allows you to have access to the cards you need to make your combo work. And I always said that Dragonine was garbage and would never be competitive, and then I built an FTK deck with it, and it's the best deck in Buddy Fight right now. So let's get into that deck. We have our first card, one of your most important cards, and the card that really threw people off at the tournament. We have Gargantua Gate. This is just a random rare card from SBT04, and its abilities do not matter. In fact, you will never activate its actual abilities. Its abilities are, up to things, so you can choose 0. And the key part is its cast cost, which is setting your life to 1. And that's all you need to read about it. The important thing to keep in mind with that is when you set your life to 1 using it, it can't be spell nulled because that's part of the cast cost. So it's basically a spell-proof spell that puts your life to 1. Yes, it is broken. This should not exist. Should get an errata or be banned. Next, we have the other key combo maker. We're moving into our Demon Dragon. Sorry, Evil Demonic Dragon. Ugh, hate that translation. Our Demon Dragon engine, starting with your main boss card, Belial. The key thing here is when your life is at 1, when he swings, he's got 666 crit. He also has triple attack and the penetrate and the woo. So cool. It is cool. The idea here being that with just these 2 cards alone, you win 9 games out of 10 with no other setup. So the entire deck's based on turboing them out and getting the OTK or FTK with them. It's really ridiculous. Of like the 18 matches I played at regionals, I FTK'd more than 10 times. Yeah. Okay. So next card we have is one of your more important ones. This is your Searcher. This searches out your Belial. That's awesome. You kind of need that. It's one of your 2 key cards. You have other ways to get him out, but this is the most guaranteed method. So that's what it's at for. It also has, it gives him Pseudo Soul Guard, which is neat, but it doesn't come up all that often. Next we have 3 copies of, Griffiths. This guy, he's another Demon Dragon monster. He prevents your Belial's abilities from being nullified, which is important, and prevents him being rested. This is a really good card to have, but it's only good in certain matchups. So in some matchups, you are going to be switching him out for your sideboard cards. But he's very important. Next, we have 2 copies of Lupus. Lupus is a very good card, but 2 copies is as many as you should be running in this deck because your games will never go beyond 2 turns, your opponent's and yours. And he can only be called once per turn. So you've got the 2 just for consistency, so you see him a little bit better. But if you ever see both, the second one's always a brick. So never run 3 or 4. Next, we have your Diablo Soul. It's a standard draw spell. You gain 2 gauge, draw 2 cards. You can use it after you've hit the life break on it for another draw, but most of the time I just do it beforehand. Doesn't really matter. You're drawing enough as is. Then we have your top 5 checker. You get to check your top 5, put up to your 2 demon dragons, hooray, by discarding a card. This card's actually really important, even though the top 5 search is not all that consistent, because it's one of your, if not your best, gauge gaining card, which can be important. So you got a relatively good searching effect and gauge gaining all wrapped up in one card. So it's pretty good. It's a necessary 4 because of that. Next, we're actually done with the Demon Dragon engine. I've condensed it down to its bare minimums because that's what you should be doing. That's how you make the deck good. Next, we move into the other engine. This is the Dimension Dragon engine. So we're going to start with 4 copies of Virgo Nia. Virgo Nia is amazing. The real key thing about this is when you trigger its ability, you get to check the top 4 and put any 2 into your hand, not just like 2 Dimension Dragons. That's why he's so good. And you can grab your gate or grab one of your draw spells you need. It's very flexible. And his ability is not that hard to hit. There are occasions where you're going to have to jump through little hoops to get through it, but it's worth it. Like 9 times out of 10, if you do get an Virgo Nia skill off, you've won the game. Next, we have 4 copies of Dimension Dragon, Ankos, however you want to pronounce his name. You have 4 copies. These are the nice hot stamp version. And his ability is when he's discarded from the hand, if you got a Dimension Dragon on the field, you gain a gauge draw card. It has an extra effect if you have Lost World, but this deck doesn't run Lost World, so it's just a gauge and draw, which is nice. And there are a lot of cards that can make him be discarded. From Virgo Nia, well, you do have to have another Dimension Dragon on the field, to some of our draw spells, to the top 5 checker we already went through. So there's a surprising amount of discard engine to make him work. Next, we have 3 copies of Dimension Dragon Crymata, I'm going to guess is the name. This one is simple. If you have another Dimension Dragon on the field, when he enters, you draw a card. Nice and simple. Can you tell that the deck is all about drawing cards? Next, we have the latest addition to the deck. We have 2 copies of Dimension Dragon Odio. So its effect is a counteract, destroy a Dimension Dragon on your field, search your deck for a card, any card, mill it, and then shuffle your deck, put it at the top of your deck. So since this deck has so much draw power, that's just fine. You are going to get it in your hand if you activate this skill. And you've got some great targets. You can search your gate if you don't have it already, which is very important. Or you can search out some of your other draw pieces if you're just needing some extra draw power. Or you can search out a Balail if you really are desperate. So fantastic card. Absolutely amazing. Now we're moving on to our Dimension Dragon spells. We have 4 copies of Desuction. Now the life gain here does not matter. You don't care about life gain because you're going to drop your own life to 1. But it's a, hey, you got a Dimension Dragon on the field? Kill it, draw 2. It's nice and simple. And since your Dimension Dragons are all being used essentially for on-enter skills, you don't care that you're killing them off. So it's essentially just a free draw 2. You'd be resizing them out of the field anyways. Next, we have a second Dimension Dragon draw card. That's D Endbringer. So this is if you have a Dimension Dragon on the field, pay a gauge, draw 2 cards. It's nice and simple. It's a nice one if you have a Dimension Dragon on the field, which you're going to have a Dimension Dragon on the field. We have 3 versus 4 of the Desuction because of the 1 gauge cost on it is a little worse than the free Desuction. And next, we have your generic draw spells. We have 3 copies of Divine Dragon Creation, pay 2 life, draw 2 cards, nice and simple. Why wouldn't you be running that? It's a great card to start the game off with. It's fantastic. And then we have the most important draw spell by far for the deck. I cannot stress how important this card is. We have 3 copies of Soaring Dragons, Fair Skylines. Pay 2 gauge, draw 3, discard 2. This card is so good for filtering out, getting rid of the cards in your hand that you don't need, drawing you extra cards. It is wonderful. I cannot stress that enough. Yeah. Fantastic. And that's the main deck. That's everything in the main deck. The entire point is getting your Balail and your gate, so the rest of it's just drawing them out. Here's your sideboard. Now, the key thing about your sideboard is it very much depends on if you're going to be going first or second. Your games will play out quite differently depending on which. This guy here, what's his name? I don't even know. His name is Sloth. That was easy. Sloth here is great for when you're going second because he can counter Stand Your Belial. So if you need to go aggressive, your opponent has a bunch of defense cards, you can push through for a fourth attack real easy with him. And because he's got that counter stand, it's essentially the same as Griffiths. His cannot be rested. But it's better / worse depending on the matchup. So you can swap between them. We also have 2 copies of Wicked Dragon of Fabrication, Demonica. This is great for matches against opponents who have really good disruption. Now, there is one big caveat with that. He costs a life, meaning you can't use it after you've already used your gate. So you have to play around that, but it's still a really good card to have. When you're playing a combo deck, you want to be able to stop your opponent stopping your combo. Next, we have 1 extra copy of Griffiths. I like this for matchups where my opponents, especially when they're running the types of cards that, hey, rest your opponent's monster, it can't restand. That feels bad, so I have a 4th just in case I need it. Then we have 3 copies of Diablos Disposal. This is a really interesting choice, I think. So the entire point of this card, sure, it can blow up all your opponent's monsters. That's cool and all. But the entire point is on your first turn, you can eat up your opponent's gauge. So what that means is, hey, cast this card, your opponent can't use spell nulls. It is an anti-spell null card, and that's about it. That's exactly what I use it for, and it works tremendously, and no one ever sees it coming. I suppose they will now, but, you know, no one did. Last, we have 2 copies of the Impact. Obviously, you don't mainboard this because it is literally impossible to use when you are going first. But when you're going second, I actually won 1 game in particular entirely because of this card that I would have absolutely lost without it. You just pay 2 gauge if you attack 3 times or more. Boom, 666 damage again. So if they manage to prevent all of your attacks, you still get it off. And it's a lot harder to also have an out to that. So yeah, that is the entire deck. Let me know what you guys think. Yeah, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our full tournament review. I'll go over the deck in more detail, and we might even do some gameplay with it if you guys would like to see that. And I'll see you guys next time.